Right guys, so we're going to be talking about some board breakers for YCS Dortmund, and start off with, we've got Dark Green No More. So Dark Green No More is good, but the problem with Dark Green No More, I would say, is that this is a card that is good, but it's dependent on your deck's ability to crack boards in itself. Some decks like Pearly can make a big Zeus and just out any board, or they can use Pretty Memory to suck up loads of cards. Other decks like Rescuers, for example, really struggle to crack boards, and so this ends up being bad for them instead. So I would say this is quite dependent, but if your deck can play it, I do think it's nice. It does answer a lot of boards. Even in the Unchained matchup, it's not bad, because you'll turn off their Caesar and their Rage and force them to use their Trap to bring back Rage. So you kind of slow down their interactions and force them to sequence differently, and you do turn off a relevant one, which is nice. It's good against, the problem, it's good against a lot of the like weird combo decks we have right now as well, the Manadiums and stuff. However, the issues you will run into with this card is that a lot of decks on the crackback can do a lot, and this card, you're not killing them that turn. So if you do have this card, you do kind of need to win the game by like setting up infinite negates or something. Otherwise, sometimes on the crackback they violate you, but it's still a very good card. Super Poly, unfortunately, is not amazing right now, and it just comes down to the fact that not many of the top decks are super polyable right now. So it's not a bad card at all, it just isn't really fitting the format. And in fact, I'll even put it a little bit lower, just because there's just very few matchups you can actually super poly. Now, if you're playing tier or something, or if you're playing branded, then this is still a pretty good card to play in your deck and your side, because you have cards that you can super poly with your opponent's board. But other than that, I wouldn't play it. Gimli is very, very good. The thing is, it's okay against Unchained, but the thing that makes it really unfair is against the non-Unchained decks at the top. So this is like your Pearlies, your Labyrinths. Labyrinth is not always amazing against, but your Rescue is pretty good against. And this is also probably the best hand trap when paired, or the best board breaker, sorry, when paired with another card as well. Because sometimes when you do things like evenly their board and then have a Duster left over, or evenly their board and have a Pancrops left over, it can be really, really unfair. So a really good card. Then the next two of these cards need to be banned. They're both incredibly unfair. These cards are just crazy. Going second, especially because we're talking about board breakers, Thrust becomes a lot better. If we're talking about going first, just tech cards, then Talents is better. But these cards are just really unfair because they put your opponent in a position where, for interacting with you, they get hard punished. Like Search Any Card is crazy. Search or Set Any Card is crazy, and the 3 effects on Talents as well is insane. So yeah, these cards are amazing. Definitely play them. If your deck can't play them, your deck is not good enough. Your deck is not a good deck, and I would not play a deck that can't play these cards. That is my opinion. So you should definitely play these cards. They're just so unfair, and they will win loads of matchups free. Droplets is okay. It's really dependent on the deck you're playing. But like, when the thing about Droplets is that it's got such a widespread where it's like, when it's good, it's really good, and it just dominates, because you can do things like, so in Rescuers I play it often, it's like you normal summon their left up, they chain something, and you chain the Droplets, and now you get a negate and you get to send that. Or if you have an emergency as well, you chain both, and like, it's really good in those situations. But then in other situations, it just doesn't matter. So it's a good card, but it requires you to sequence your play specifically, and it also sometimes requires your opponent to play in a specific way, and if they read you have Droplets, they can just not. So, but it's still a good card. Duster's very good. It's Duster. Remove all the back row. That's hard to say anything about it, and it doesn't have restrictions that a lot of the other cards have. Another thing you're going to see as well is that a lot of cards get better just because of the existence of Thrust. Like, Thrust means that I can afford to play 2 Thrust and then one of this, and this, and just hope I get to see one of those cards, which is kind of crazy. Lava Golem is amazing right now as well. I think if you can play Lava Golem, 100% play it. It destroys pretty much every end board in the format right now. So if you're a deck that can play Lava Golem, or kind of play it, you should definitely be playing it. On the other hand, Sphere Mode, I would say, is quite bad, where it hits some matchups really well in the way of Lava Golem, but it's just most decks aren't ended on 3 bodies. Chalice I don't think is that good. I think the problem with Chalice is it just doesn't do enough. There's no deck that I really want to see Chalice going second. The advantage Chalice has, I guess, is that when you're going first, it's not a complete brick, but I'd rather we're getting to the point in Yu-Gi-Oh where you can't afford to have mediocre cards. Every card needs to be game winning. I don't want a card that needs another card to be good. Kurakara has gone down a lot because people firstly know how to play against it, and secondly because a lot of the top decks don't hard lose to it. So I would say that Kurakara is still good, and sometimes it will auto win, but Cashtira not being around does hurt it. And yeah, like, you're sometimes out of Hurley board with it, but that's about it, and it can be played around. Lightning Storm, I don't like. I tried it today, and my problem with Lightning Storm was the restriction came up a lot, and also that I can't even side it in going first like Cyclone as well, which sucks. Like, it doesn't have that versatility. And then now a lot of Labyrinth players are going to be playing Heavenly Prison because that answers the Unchained matchup very well for them. Adding all of these things together, it just makes this card not that good, so I would not recommend playing Lightning Storm in my opinion. The books, I would say that Book of Eclipse is similar to Chalice, where I don't think it's good enough because it just doesn't do enough as a board breaker. As a generic utility card, it's okay, but as a board breaker, it's not good. Eclipse is a little bit better, but still not amazing. Change of Heart, on the other hand, is very good. Being able to take your opponent's monsters or tribute your opponent's monsters right now is hugely impactful. And that Econ is a similar thing where I really like Econ. I think Econ is a bit like Droplets, but better. Where it's like just getting your monster off the field is useful sometimes, and then taking their card in the Unchained matchup is great. They can play around it, but it forces them to do weird things. XYZ Encore is very good for specific matchups. So for Unchained, it's nice to answer Abyss Dweller, as in if other people use it against you, and it's good into Pearly, which is nice. So I do think it has a room in the side deck, but I would say as well that the decks that this is good against are hit by other cards as well. So I would say if you want extra stuff specifically in Unchained to deal with other card decks, like if Unchained you're trying to deal with Dweller and you're scared of Pearly matchup, this is a great card. Otherwise, I don't think you really need it. Herald of the Abyss is a good card, but again, this is a card that is carried by Thrust. It's carried hard because I don't want to play 3 of this card in my deck, and it's so easy to play around. But when I have Thrust, I have 4 copies of this card. It's so stupid. So yeah, I don't think Dark Hole's that good. I've been hearing a lot of fuss about it. I don't think it's that good. The problem with Dark Hole is that, yes, it answers things like Ibli and all of that as well. But firstly, in most situations where I have Dark Hole, like, I don't want to just get rid of the monsters, I want to get rid of traps as well, basically. And if a card is going to answer only monsters, it needs to either be fast and like give me some tempo like these cards, or it needs to be hugely impactful where it also kind of gets me ahead like Kurakara. I don't like Dark Hole because it doesn't do either of those things. And then also just ignoring Ibli, I don't ever really want to destroy my own monsters, so I don't like Dark Hole that much. I think Raigeki is a lot better, and even Raigeki I don't think is that good. Ultimate Slayer I think is really, really good right now. I think Kashtira being gone is great, and it's very good into the Unchained end board. It's very good into a lot of generic combo deck end boards as well. The problem with Ultimate Slayer you're always going to run into is that not every deck can play it, but if your deck can play Ultimate Slayer, I do think it should be playing it. Another thing that's really nice about Ultimate Slayer is obviously the fact that it's not once per turn. It's not got any once per turn calls at all, and I think that is very relevant for a card like this because it means that sometimes you do draw 2 or you prosperity into a second, and you can just use it again and punish your opponent hard for it. Denko is very good if you can play it, but the problem with Denko is most decks can't play it, and there's not enough trap decks in the format. So I would say for most decks you don't need to play this. The exceptions to this are like Dark World and Drytron. Decks like that will be good because often people will side in weird blowouts, and this will be good. Other than that, I don't think you need to play it. Panktops, I don't think you need to play. I think it's just mediocre. It's just not that good a card, unfortunately. Cyclone, I do think is very, very good. I've been liking Cyclone for a long time. It's not a game-winning card, but it answers a lot of problems that happen. So sometimes your opponent will just flap up a random skill drain or whatever. This answers it, and I like the fact that I can use it going first as well. Like going first, a set Cyclone does hurt a lot of decks when Pearly activate Field Spoil. It just turns off that, or Unchained set a card and you just banish it. Like Cyclone does come up quite a lot. Alpha unfortunately is bad, and it just comes down to the fact that he just won't ever do what you want him to do. In the Unchained matchup, they will just link him off. In the Pearly matchup, Noir will just bounce him off, and he's even if it doesn't bounce off Noir, then Noir almost certainly has enough material to protect this, and then they'll just bounce it in battle phase anyway. So yeah, it's a shame that Alpha never got its time to shine. Kaijus are pretty good, but I would say they're the epitome of mediocre. They will always trade 1 for 1, which is great. That's just not enough anymore. You need your cards to be instant wins a lot of the time, so that's the problem with Kaijus. Blizzard is okay, but I can't see myself siding in. The thing is, so I was considering this because Thrust and Talents are just ridiculous right now. They're so unfair, and it's like a way to answer spells, but this is not it, unfortunately. It's like, it's okay, it will do that job, but it's going to give them the card back, which again, it means a lot of times you need to try and get ahead, and it's hard to get ahead when you know they have that card in hand. And then lastly, Twin Twister. So I haven't played Twin Twister for a long time. but I actually don't think it's bad. Probably like middle of the pack. Like, I don't think it's terrible. There are some situations obviously where it's going to be worse than Cyclone because of things like Heavenly Prison and Dex protecting from destruction, but all in all, Twister is still a good card, and the discard actually does help some decks like Rescue Ace. But guys, this is where I'm sitting at with Board Breakers. It's going to be really interesting. I do think, like I said, these top 4 should be in pretty much everyone's deck. If Lava Golem, if you can play it, but if you can't play Lava, I'll move Lava Golem down. But if you can't play Lava Golem, Thrust and Talents are the real kings of this format. Going first, going second, find a way to play those cards, guys, or you're going to have a really bad time at Dortmund. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and I'll talk to you all soon. Peace.